Welcome to part 2 of my How conversation with Angela Ahrendts. Angela was formerly the Senior Vice President of Retail at Apple, and before that, the CEO of Burberry, and today she's also the Chair of Save the Children International. Coming up in the second part of our How conversation, Angela explains why she envisioned and then commissioned the Human Responsibility Report to measure how Apple was using moral leadership and human connections to enrich lives, build community, and elevate stakeholder capitalism. This is Apple's Human Responsibility Report. And this was your endeavor to envision and encapsulate and then create the metrics. It's one thing to say we're going to enrich lives. It's another thing to translate that into, if we're enriching lives, what would that look like? What would store managers and employees have to do in order to enrich our lives? How would we measure that? And how would we then report on the progress we're making and impact we're having in that spirit and regard? And this is the, I know you shared this internally within Apple. Talk about this project that culminated in a human responsibility report. And first start by, why did we call it a human responsibility report and not a corporate social responsibility report?
Well, in retail, we were pretty close to 60% of Apple's workforce. And our turnover rates had gone down so dramatically. People were feeling engaged. Our tenure was climbing. We were promoting, a third of our people. We were moving people all over the world. And so it was this special moment. And we thought we're doing some very interesting things. We were, not everything worked, but how do we capture some of these unique things we're doing? Because every metric in retail, and oh, by the way, yeah, business was incredible as well. But I would say that's the outcome of doing the right things right, those soft strategies that connect and empower people. So we said, we're the largest part of the workforce, why don't we try to capture what we've done? And not for our own egos, but to share with the world, because everybody was talking about the demise of retail. Retail's Armageddon, thousands of stores are closing a year. Where we were opening flagships in the top 30 cities in the world. We were renovating all of the old stores, 100 to 150 a year. And so we're investing. Our business is great. Our employees are happy. If we could share that, with other great companies, retail's a third of the GDP in the country. It can't go away. I mean, there's too many lives involved. And so that was really the mission, was if we could share our learnings to inspire other people. And that's why we called it the human responsibility, because it was all about human connection. It first and foremost was a legacy to Steve. He said, enriching lives. That is Apple's ethos, but it was specifically retail's ethos. And I just dreamed of leaving them with a mechanism where they could measure if they were truly doing that. So we just took the things that everyone was already doing, pulled those down, and said, okay, now how do we inspire, but how do we measure whether or not we're actually doing it?
And my sense was that first, human responsibility was about human connection, but it was also to remind people that our technologies should serve positive human ends. And because we are big and powerful, we have an extra responsibility to be an example of responsibility. And when you take all that together, I felt you encapsulated that. Does that seem to capture what you were up to? Great.
Perfectly.
But there's another piece to this. You said, Aristotle said 3,000 years ago that man and woman were social animals. I look how fatigued we are in the pandemic. I mean, we are not going to change that we are social. We might have to reinvent ways to be social in new ways, digitally, like on Zoom, etc. But our inherent nature that we are social is not going to change. We might have to be creative in being social in new ways. You and I have talked often that if you're in business and you're not in the business of community, and what makes a community? Sharing deep truths, sharing values. if you're not in the business of fostering community, you're going to be out of business. Speak to why that is something that resonates with you.
When someone walks into an Apple retail store, they don't think it's an Apple retail store. To them, it's Apple. And those are Apple employees. They're brand ambassadors, if you will. And that store typically does more revenue than any other retail operation in town, and employs a lot of people, et cetera. So because it's Apple, the expectations are raised. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to raise the expectations. We wanted them to go to another level from serving their community. Apple Retail was brilliant at serving individuals, but rarely did we ask you about your family. But yet Apple Music launched, and there's family sharing, there's all of these other, but yet that wasn't in our vernacular. Tim had said that Apple could double its size with business. But what was Apple Retail's role in business, right? We weren't there to serve big business, but who's taking care of the millions of entrepreneurs around the world? And so what we wanted to do was we wanted them to lift up, and we felt that retail had a role to play in education, formal education. Again, Apple had somebody dealing with the public school systems. Who's dealing with the chartered schools and the private schools and the smaller ones? So I would ask the store managers, do you know every private school within 25 miles of you? Do you know the hundreds of small entrepreneurs within 20, 30 miles of you? Because it was not just about, how many people came in and what a good job we did serving you. I wanted them to rise up and feel that they had a much bigger responsibility and could make a much bigger impact. To me, there's nothing more important. The stronger that our communities are, the stronger our nation will be, Dov, the stronger right? But it begins in your home, in your neighborhood, in your community. And that's why we said, what's Apple's role in the community? Not just the store, not just to sell, but to truly, if Steve said their job was to teach customers, to teach them things they don't know, then how do we just scale that? How do we make it relevant during our time together? And then how do we make sure we measure it so we're doing it? And that was the strategy and the human responsibility. We're simply sharing how we did it.
So Angela, you've been speaking so expansively and eloquently of really the imperatives that around the kind of leadership we need to foster an abundance of trust so people come together towards great shared ends. So in this time of pandemic, in this unfamiliar time, how have you fostered meaningful connections with others in new ways? Just in your personal life or just in the last 6 months? Examples.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see my mom as frequently, so I try to call her I used to call her once a week. Now I try to call her a couple of times a week just to stay connected. And she never likes FaceTime, but I always put on FaceTime. And I've got 2 kids in London that I haven't been able to see. And so FaceTime, I FaceTime my daughter in London now, she's calling me, I'm calling her. And honestly, we feel closer than ever. Right. So I think using technology, whether it's traditional phone, whether it's FaceTime or Blue Jean or Zoom or Microsoft Teams, or there's so many different options out there now that we can use. But I think that it still takes the initiative. It takes the initiative, and Dov, no different than in a physical world, it takes being present, right? Don't call just to say you called, right? Call and ask the right questions. Call and let people know you care. Before I got on the call with you today, I texted 4 friends. Some weren't feeling well. They were afraid of COVID. How are you today? Right. So I use text a lot. I use WhatsApp a lot. We've lost friends. I think more constant, consistent communication, more caring. Truly, do they feel me? Whether it's a text or WhatsApp or FaceTime. Know that I deeply care about you. And so I guess the word is emotion, right? There's one thing to have energy, but energy without emotion is nothing. And and it goes back to authenticity and, My dad used to always say, it's one of my favorite quotes, I've used it over and over, but he always would say, I can teach you anything, but I can't teach you to care. Mm. And so show people you care. And if you don't care, don't waste the time and do it, because then it does more damage. But if you genuinely love and care and, and you want the same back again, because I do believe whatever you give, you get tenfold in return. So, so you care, others will care even greater for you. And to me, that's how we fight this thing. That's how we accelerate more quickly out of it, because we become stronger together during it, through it. So then when we can see each other physically again, imagine how incredible it's going to be.
I know you're not saying that moral leadership is about being moralizing or moralistic or going to the gym to always get the right moral answer. Moral leadership for you is about frameworks that are rooted in two-way conversations, in shared values, not necessarily your values. So just for the record, what is your definition of moral leadership as distinct from leaders who moralize?
Again, not to oversimplify, but always doing what's best for the greater good of the whole. Not yourself, not your favorite person, not your boss, not your board, but always stepping back. Your organization, your department, I mean, there's always a way to make an impact no matter what role you play in your company.
Part of moral leadership is who you see and what you see in the other. And the more full humanity you see in the other, the more your own leadership will probably come from a place of care and empathy. So with that in mind, specifically, what are some of the ways or skills you've developed to see the full humanity in the other?
Yeah, I think that, you talk about pausing. I think that often managers, when they meet people or they're a part of a group, they always think that they have to know. And it's a very top-down approach, right? They have to give directive. They have to know. And to me, my guidance would be pause, listen, and I would argue the higher up you get, the narrower your view becomes. And you lose all that daily perspective, because I think what happens is, leaders think they're supposed to know, and they stop listening. They keep telling, and then they lose. Things are moving so fast up, and the next generation, they do everything different, and you're just going to shut off your own learning. For me, again, I'm going to go back and say, my job, I don't care if I'm a CEO or I'm an SVP, my job is to listen, to look forward, to connect, to enable this giant amorphous culture, groups of thousands of people. But it is not about me telling them or micromanaging them or, that's physically, humanly impossible. And especially when I went from Burberry to Apple, how could I possibly learn and understand and know? So I have to trust that they're going to operationally do, and and then you look forward, et cetera. So to me, the greatest thing a leader can do is you have to listen, and you have to feel, and then your job with at least your main directs is the right people in the right place at the right time. And that's your job as you're looking ahead, et cetera. But you have to respect every individual, and you have to listen. And if you don't listen and you don't feel them, you'll never get to know them. You'll never, and that's what your data shows in the Human Connection Report. They will be disengaged. Half will leave you if they don't trust you and don't feel you're a moral leader. And
right. Angela, let's talk about stakeholder capitalism. I mean, you've been at the vanguard of putting humanity at the center of business. And I know that you're on the record as a proud capitalist, and you don't think there's a better system. But there's different versions of capitalism. And I think that in the time of this pandemic, the debate and the choice between shareholder primacy, that this whole institution exists to serve the one stakeholder at the top, the shareholder, versus an approach to capitalism that sees every stakeholder as a co-equal constituent of a community, an enterprise, and an ecosystem, and that we have to operate and lead a business in a way that treats them equally. I know you're in the latter camp, but what do you really think of stakeholder capitalism? Is there wind in its sails, or is it sailing into the wind? Are you hopeful about it? What's your vision and for it? It seems that that debate is rife right now.
I hate to use the word proud, Dov, but I am very proud of how we ran Burberry, because we were all about stakeholder capitalism back then. Everyone had free shares in the company. So we didn't just talk about one team. Every single person at Burberry, they had the same healthcare benefits. They all had shares in the company. Everybody won in the company's success. So when I joined Apple, it wasn't the case. Only 10% of the people in retail actually had shares in the company, and they had totally different healthcare benefits from in the center. And this is where Tim, as a leader, was absolutely incredible. The first year I called out some of these disparities, and each year, I would share with him, retail versus, and I will tell you, after my 5 years, Dov, to this day, every retail employee has free shares in the company every year. The medical benefits are matched. They have the same education allowance that everybody in Cupertino has. And so all stakeholders have got to be involved in a company's success, or I believe in the future, your company won't be successful.
Angela, if you were going to give some advice to somebody early in their career today that wants to flourish and have impact and do good and just try to have as much as possible in life and make a difference, but do well, what would you tell them?
Stay in your lane. Know who you are. Know what your gifts are. Long to understand what your purpose in life is. And the reason I say stay in your lane is don't try to be someone you're not. Don't try to do things that you're not physically, mentally, emotionally called to do. We all have been given unique gifts. And so understand your gifts, sharpen your gifts, whatever that is, whether it's in finance, whether it's in, creativity, whatever it is, and be the best version of yourself. And then just keep focused, stay in your lane. Why are great athletes so great? Because it's all they do. They just stay so. Why are musicians? So I think it's no different in business. It's no different. You have a gift. Companies are these giant things made up of multiple departments and multiple skills. What's your skill? What's your gift? And focus on it and make it your expertise, and then stay in your lane. Just, you better than anybody else will ever know you. And the only other thing I would say too is work for great people. Work for people who will take you under their wings, who will mentor you. A lot of times these young kids, I want to work for that company, that. It's not just the company. You will get lost in that company. Get with a mentor, get with a person. It doesn't matter the name on that company. But the more you learn, and I would say you learn a lot more in a smaller company. The larger the company, the narrower the role when you're starting out. And if someday you want to run that really big company, I would start out at really little companies where you get a full 360 exposure to so many different things. And then you could go to a mid-size and a larger, and then someday you could end up in a bigger position in a really big company. And you'll know enough about every area to have an opinion, but you won't get that total exposure. But know who you are. Know where you excel and know where you can add the greatest value in the company. You know, again, my dad used to quote people constantly, and he would always look at us and say, to thyself be true.
Yeah. And to be true to thyself, you have to know thyself. How did you come to know yourself? What's your moral gym? Where did you go to be so clear on your calling and who you are, and therefore that allowed you to nurture that and to stay in the lane you talk about?
Yeah, and do understand, Dov, that I'm a lot older than probably your average listener. And so this is not something it's not a light switch you just turn on one day. This is a lifetime of searching. And in the searching, I have read and read and read, and I have meditated and meditated. And as a young girl growing up, I was incredibly insecure. And I'm not going to tell you there's times in my life when I'm still not insecure. But when I get insecure, then I go back to reading. Then I go back to meditating. Then I go back to, and I pride myself on being a curious student. The minute that I get afraid or insecure, then, I'm gonna study my way out of it. I'm going to learn. I'm going to, expand my horizon. And so I think being curious, but it's a lifelong journey. And again, I have longed for wisdom and peace since I can remember. And I don't know if we will ever fully achieve it, but as long as that's on the horizon for me, as long as that's what I'm striving for, then I stay very much in my lane, and I love a routine, and
So Angela, Napoleon said that a leader is a dealer in hope, and this hour or so with you, you are so hopeful. And for you, hope is a verb. It's not a noun, this thing you have. It's your whole disposition to be animated by hope. What makes you so hopeful?
Well, first of all, Dov, it's a choice, right? And I choose to be happy. And I know the impact of being happy on my health, on my mind, on my longevity, on everything, on my outlook. So I choose every day to be happy. I like myself better. I am more productive. I can impact more people if I am happy, if I am positive. And again, I stay open then. I stay so open to many more ideas and things I never thought about that, when you're sharing conversation with people. But it's so easy to be negative. It's so easy to look at the worst, and it's taken a lot of years and a lot of work and a lot of reading, but I choose to be happy. I choose to see the good and the great in everyone and in everything, and I don't care to see life another way at this stage in life.
So we agree on so much. I actually I'm going to just quibble with your words, Angela. I don't think you choose to be happy. I think what you just said at the end, you choose to see the good and make a difference in the lives of others. I mean, the most ancient paradox in philosophy from Aristotle to Sedgwick is the paradox of hedonism, that if you pursue happiness, it will elude you. But if you pursue meaning and you pursue your source of meaning, which for you is creating goodness, is seeing the beauty in others and in the difference you can make, then you create the possibility for happiness to find you. So if I can have the last word on your happiness, I actually think happiness continues to find you because you're pursuing goodness.
Well said. Well said, and I agree 100%.
I think that's what you were saying, but you gave me an opportunity to really just underscore your true pursuit.
No, you're absolutely right, Dov, and in its simplest terms, and again, that's what I've always said, is whatever I give, I love nothing more than when I smile at someone and I get this or every morning I've always, good morning, how are you? And I love what I get back. And so in the simplest form, and then when you multiply that at every level, that makes me happy. That fulfills me, and that fuels me with more energy to keep going and to keep doing more positive things. So It might sound so simple and trite, but it is the ethos, I believe, I do believe of human happiness. I believe that those who give and those who care deeply, that it is, it's incredibly healing. It's incredibly fulfilling.
So, Angela, in the spirit of wrapping up this incredibly meaningful conversation, earlier this year, you had a conversation with Reid Hoffman on his Masters of Scale podcast. And I know it's been viewed incredibly widely. It was I urge everybody to go find Masters of Scale, where you and Reid Hoffman had a far-ranging conversation. But at the end of the conversation, you alluded, you didn't give an answer, you just had this sense that in the next handful of months, you'd be called to do something different in the future that would be daunting and challenging, but you knew that you would have to just lean into it, however daunting it is. Tell us what it is and why you're doing it, and then we'll leave things at that.
I agreed, effective January 5th, to become the chairman of Save the Children International. And why? Because I was reading all of the statistics about how extreme poverty will go from 8 to 26%. And I think The Economist put out an article yesterday, 160 million people will become destitute, and the more I read, the more my heart broke. It broke my heart. And everything I've done in my career has been focused around children. You know, unfortunately, they're born into situations, et cetera. So the more I read and the more I hurt. And then when they called, it felt like a calling. It felt like that, again, Burberry was a warm-up for Apple, and Apple was a warm-up for Save the Children. And everything that I've learned and across the world, and every leadership skill and gift, and I feel very called to try and help partner, leverage technology, work with the most incredible CEO and team in one of the most amazing, very old companies that has been doing incredible work for years. And Dov, I don't know what I don't know, but when it's a calling, I'm all in and my heart's in. And I will use every gift I have to try and impact as many lives as I can. And I can't think of more fulfilling work during my next chapter.
Well, I speak for myself, and I know for every person who's going to listen to this conversation with you, that is a source of hope, that you, Angela Ahrendts, are going to lead an organization that is about saving children. And knowing that more children will be saved because of you and the kind of leader you are is inspiring and a source of profound hope. There's a Talmudic adage that words that come from the heart enter the heart. And Angela, I can't think of anybody who embodies that adage more than you, because you come from the heart. And in doing so, you've just been entering hearts day in, day out. So thank you for entering our hearts with who you are and how you lead. And it's just a privilege to be in common cause with you. And all the best. And thank you, Angela.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dov.